Hi guys, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am revisiting faves and flops from the past. So we're doing flashback favorites, I think is what I want to call this. But I'm also going over the flops, the things that I did not love in my collection. And I hope that sounds like something that you're interested in. I always like revisiting these things so that I can give you years later an interpretation of what happened with these items in my collection, whether I still love them today. Today, we're going over favorites that I had in August and September of 2018, you guys. That is surely a blast from the past. This might be a kick in the pants. You might find yourself remembering things that you also once had but forgot all about because I did. I hope that sounds like something that you're interested in, and I hope that you'll want to stick around and watch. Subscribe before you go. For those of you new here today, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high and colorful beauty and self-care. I also work in the beauty industry as a field leader for Ulta Beauty. I get a lot of education in my position. I like to bring you that education here on my channel, but I also just kind of love to talk about makeup, and I'm assuming if you're here, you also love to talk about makeup, and you want me to shut it down and just start talking about makeup. So we're going to just shut it down and start talking about makeup. All right, so today we are going over my faves and flops from September and August of 2019. And when I was going through this list, you guys, I was like, what the F is that? Like, did I owned that? Like, what? And then I was like, oh my God, I forgot I owned that. And then there's one item in here that I think is kind of funny. Kind of funny, actually. All right, so first and foremost, I am going to scooch over because I'm going to have to put pictures of most of the products in here. I do have a handful of products still left in my collection. One of them I'm incredibly ashamed of. But I also think that I'm not going to stop using it just because it's old. I do think that it works fine still to this day. So there's that. In August, I had about 5 flops, and then I had a whole bunch of faves. And a lot of them can be like accumulated into the fact that I bought from one brand and one brand only because I did a video on my channel reviewing, a full face of on my channel. So this was, I think, the month after I had done that full face of video, and so I thought that these were my favorites at the time. Not recording audio, of course, I promise you. I will always have this problem, I think. It's always amazing to me that we do these reviews, right, or tryouts, right, of these products, and then we come back and we're like, this is the most amazing thing ever, and then even a month later we're like, this sucks. And that is why, friends, I do not do first impressions ever, because I might do a full face trying things that are new, but I never give a review on an item until I've really sat back and used it. My palette roulettes, I'm using the same palette for 2 weeks at a time or 1 week at a time, dependent on, how big or how many of the palettes I have in use, because I don't want to come to you and say, this is amazing, when it's actually poop. So with that said, let's roll into August of 2018. Let's go in the Wayback Machine. In August of 2018, I had 5 flops. And the first one I had on here is this Vintage Cosmetics black eyeliner. And I remember this like it was yesterday because this eyeliner pissed me off that much. This came in a BoxyCharm, and this was an expensive eyeliner. If I remember correctly, it was something like $22 or $24 for this stupid sharpenable pencil eyeliner. It was really nice and really beautiful black eyeliner that went everywhere but where I wanted it to be. It went everywhere. I would have black eye boogies from this eyeliner, and it would just fall onto, melt I don't know. It went everywhere. I hated this eyeliner so dang much. So that one was a big fatty fail for me. And the same can be said for the JCat Beauty eyeliner that I had also in green. Now, I had 4 eyeliners from JCat Beauty, I believe, all the same line. I had a green, like a baby blue, a white, and I think a pink one. Because back then, like, that was it for colored eyeliner, like that or Urban Decay, and I didn't want to spend $24 on an Urban Decay eyeliner. Now it's like a drop in the pan, like an Urban Decay. Okay, sure. They were awful. They also didn't stay, but to be honest, I had a really hard time getting any pigmentation off of them in the first place. So I felt like I was constantly going over and over and over and over and over on my waterline to get them to even show up on my waterline. And then they didn't stay at all. Within an hour or so, you couldn't even tell that I had put an eyeliner in my waterline. So they were definitely not waterline savvy eyeliners, which is the only place that I put pencil liners is in my waterline. I really didn't love those at all. And then there was this e.l.f. Dark Star Eye Makeup Remover Balm. Funny story about this guy is that I have it in here as a flop, but for whatever reason, I maintained holding on to that sucker for years. But at one point, I believed this to be a lip primer in my collection. So I honest to God was putting this on my lips to prime my lips prior to doing a lipstick, and then wondering why the lipstick was poop. I think I maybe have decluttered lipsticks because I was using this makeup remover as as a lip primer. Like, what is wrong with me? But the truth is that it came in the same kind of packaging that a lip primer would come in. So, of course I'm going to think that it's a lip primer. Of course. So, I don't blame me. No, no, no. I blame e.l.f. The next thing I have on the flops list was the Cella Eyebrow Cream. And I think ultimately this comes down to the fact that I didn't have a flippin' clue how to use this when this came into my life. When this came into my life, I wasn't even putting pencils in my eyebrows. I wasn't putting a 24-hour brow gel. I wasn't doing anything with my eyebrows. When I look at videos from back then, I was like, oh my God, I really did nothing with my eyebrows. And now, I love my eyebrows, but man, if my eyebrows are not done, there's a problem. I just don't think I knew how to use this. It was super thick, too hard for me to get it to work. I think the brush with it also, because it was a contraption that it looked like a pen, and on one end of that pen was the brush that you use to put the product into your eyebrows, and the other end of that pen pulled off, and that's had the product in it. The product lasted forever, first and foremost, but it was too hard to get to it, but also and see what you were doing. But also the brush was so thick, so you were destined to have big, boxy, big eyebrows, and that was it. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing with that kind of product, so of course I wasn't gonna like it. And then the last one I have on here was the Laura Lee Party Animal palette. Does anybody remember this palette? That product also came in BoxyCharm. The Cella came in BoxyCharm as well. That Laura Lee Party Animal palette should have been amazing, and it just was awful. The eyeshadows did not stay. There was zero pigmentation to them. Laura Lee has done some really great things with eyeshadows, I've heard, but that was my one and only taste of Laura Lee, and I haven't purchased from Laura Lee since because of my experience with that palette. The eyeshadows would not stay on my eyes, and I don't have a problem with getting eyeshadows to stick around. I have never had a problem with getting eyeshadows to stick around. It was bold colors, so like, there was a chartreuse green, there was a really deep purple, a really deep blue, really bright, brilliant pink, and then a bright, brilliant orange also. It was like a 6-pan eyeshadow palette. The orange and the pink were kind of synonymous with each other. They looked exactly the same in an eye look, but all the other colors Should have been amazing. They just weren't. It was awful. So then I had some faves for that month, and I do have a couple of them with me currently still. This one is the one that I was talking about earlier where like I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to still use it until it doesn't work anymore, or until it smells bad, or until whatever. And it is the Aromatherapy Associates De-Stress Muscle Gel Focusing and Soothing Muscle Gel. And you guys, this is so good. It's like icy hot. Oh, it's like icy hot. And yes, it's old. Yes, this is the same one. Can I just tell you that it's still about half full? I forget that I have it until I'm in so much pain, but then I take it out, I rub some into my shoulders, and I'm just like, instant de-stress. Instant de-stress. I need to carry this stuff around with me in a little tiny squeezy tube so that I have it with me at all times. I love this stuff, and when it is gone, or bad, rancid, whatever, I will probably buy more if I can find it. I know it's old. I don't care. It still works. The next thing I had was the Vasanti Brighten Up. This was a face exfoliator that I actually quite loved. It did not take me long to go through this at all though, because it was just a little bottle for the most part, and I felt like I needed a lot of it when I was using it. I think it took me about 30 days or 30 showers, I guess, to get through it. I don't necessarily think that that's an atrocious amount of time, but I also don't think it's like a minimal amount of time. It was a regular size. I think it was like 1 ounce, but it was really nice. I liked it a lot, and I felt like I could see the difference in my skin while I was using that. And as a matter of fact, that product is the reason why I still to this day have an exfoliator in my shower. It's just so easy to use a facial exfoliator in the shower, and that product is the reason why I do that to this day, because that's what I did with that product. The next one I have is the Morphe setting spray, the continuous mist setting spray. You guys, this is still something that, you know, I think is a smart purchase from Morphe. This is one of the things that I would repurchase from Morphe. I really liked their continuous spray setting mist. I felt like I went through it too quickly though, which is why I quit buying it. But honest to God, it's like, I don't know, $18 or something like that. It lasted about a month, whereas like this is $49 and probably will last just a little bit longer than that. Has almost the same mindset as that, with a kind of a continuous like misty mist, like almost like, you know, the like rain mist feel to it. I would repurchase Morphe before I'd repurchase that one, if I'm honest with you, because $49 for a setting spray is just stupid in my humble opinion. And that one is almost the same feel for like 18 bucks. So I'd repurchase that. I still like that setting spray. I think I used like 3 or 4 of them before I decided I wasn't purchasing them anymore. But at the end of the day, that would be a super solid thing to continue to repurchase in terms of setting sprays, because it is really good. I felt like it was really good at keeping my makeup in place, but also a great price point. I also have on here the Dr. Brandt Needles No More Eye Depuffing Gel. I have no idea why this was ever in a favorite. I think that this was a favorite for months and months and months. I got this in BoxyCharm also, and I dislike this product so dang much these days, but I had an affinity for Dr. Brandt back then, if I remember correctly. But I think it was because Dr. Brandt kept coming to us in BoxyCharms, so it was really the only experience I had with, you know, high ticketed skincare. I don't think that this product did anything to depuff my eye gels, and it's kind of got this like orange feel to it. It's almost like, it's salmon. It's not like this color of orange. It's like a salmony color, but that salmon color was salmon enough that it would show through foundations, and it was really hard to blend into the skin. And at that point in time, honestly, I really wasn't wearing foundation a whole lot. So, I mean, it is what it is. I might feel differently about it today. I do think that I have one in backups that I got in gratis at some point in time. Lord knows it might be super, super old and I just don't realize it. I don't love that product anymore. The Wander Beauty Unlashed mascara. I remember loving this mascara. I remember loving this mascara so much that I put it onto my Instagram, and I had somebody from the brand comment back to me that they're super happy that I love the mascara, and I commented back to them, me too, it's an amazing mascara. I remember this mascara not doing anything to my lashes. Very little color. They looked very, very natural. And when I think about who I was then and who I am now, that might be why I loved this mascara. But today, it wouldn't fly. Today, that would not be the mascara that I would choose to put on to my lashes. I like a mascara that's going to give me a lot of oomph, a lot of color, a lot of length, a lot of volume. This one doesn't necessarily do it 100% for me, but I do love the length that this one gives me and kind of the curl. This is the Lancome Lashy Dole. I really like a good, not natural mascara, like almost false lash effect mascara. Wander Beauty Unlashed would not do it for me today. And then I have a whole bunch of products from BH Cosmetics on here. I have the BH Cosmetics Liquid Foundation Naturally Flawless, the BH Cosmetics Pro Concealer, the BH Cosmetics Floral Blush Duo, and the BH Cosmetics It's My Ray Ray palette. I remember the It's My Ray Ray palette, and I really did like that palette. It was really kind of dark though, and I ended up giving that to my daughter just because as I proceeded through my makeup journey and figured out the aesthetics of what I loved. And this was a very early BH Cosmetics palette. I love the formula of that palette. At the end of the day, it was a good blending palette. The shimmers were just okay. And as I went along and figured out my makeup aesthetic, I figured out that I really like an impactful eye. And those shimmers didn't do it for me. The foundation was actually very pretty. I remember this foundation. I actually I'm still quite fond of how it made my skin look back then until it went bad. And then it didn't make my skin look that way anymore. If I remember correctly, I did end up decluttering this because it got old, but it was a really pretty foundation. I think that was one of the first foundations that I had ever tried on my skin, if I'm honest. Back in the day, I didn't wear, up until I started this YouTube channel, I didn't wear makeup at all. I wore an eyeliner at times, not even every day. So foundation was one of those things that I was like, I don't need it. So a year into my channel, I finally started dabbling into foundation. I think that was the first time I had ever put a liquid foundation on my face. Or at least close to the first time I had ever put a liquid foundation on my face. The BH Cosmetics Pro Concealer, it's funny, it shows up in a faves for the month of August, and it shows up in a fail for the month of September. This was awful. This was awful. I hated that concealer, but like, disclaimer here, I still to this day do not love concealer. I just don't like concealer. I don't love how cakey it is. I don't love how thick it is. Unless it's a really light, creamy, like almost serum-y, if not serum-y texture, then I won't like it. If it gives me any kind of like dryness, I won't like it. If it looks too cakey, I won't like it. I love the LYS Triple Fix. I love the Kosas. I really quite like this one, which is by Urban Decay. It's the Urban Decay Stay Naked. And I really quite like the Dior. But other than that, like I'm not a concealer person. So to be fair, that might just be the problem with that, but also I just really hated that concealer. I think it's funny that it showed up in a faves one month and a flops the very next month. That is the true tell sign of why you should not listen to anybody's first impressions ever. The BH Cosmetics Floral Blush Duo, I remember this blush and loved this blush. I think I decluttered it 2 years ago at this point. I loved this blush. I don't know why I decluttered it. It was actually a really, oh, I know why. It was a really pretty blush, but it was a really pigmented blush. And I didn't know really what I was doing. Honest to God, 5 years ago when I started this channel was the first time I had ever really put makeup on my face. I didn't know what I was doing with blush. And every time I wore that blush, I felt like I looked like a clown. So I got rid of it because I could not, for the life of me, figure out how to use a blush that was as pigmented as that one was. So I did end up decluttering that, but it was a beautiful blush. The ABH Powder Bronzer in Rich Amber was also on my faves for August of 2018. I did pick that up at TJ Maxx, and it is a bronzer by ABH that still exists in my collection. I did end up purchasing 2 more bronzers because of my experience with this one, and so I had 3, and just this last year I decluttered one of them because I did think it was really too dark for my skin tone and a little bit more red tone than I love in a bronzer. But this one is truly a beautiful bronzer, and I can't imagine myself not having it in my collection, so I'm really glad that I have it. And then I also had Sydney Grace Single Shadows. So this was right after my first purchase from Sydney Grace, in which I had learned about her Christmas in July and received so many single shadows from her. And a lot of what is in this book is Sydney Grace single shadows. So I still have almost all of the Sydney Grace shadows that I purchased in that Christmas in July, and I love Sydney Grace eyeshadows. I mean, just to put it into perspective for you, let's swatch this purple one right here. This is Sydney Grace. Look at just how amazing that shadow is, and I, need to remind you, these are at least 5 years old. Let's swatch this blue one right here. They're just so dang pigmented. This green, they're just so dang pigmented and beautiful. So I'm really happy still to this day to have Sydney Grace in my life. Last year I got some more of her single eyeshadows, in Christmas in July. Again, they have a Christmas in July sale every single year where they do like 12 days of different sales events that are going on their channel, their Instagram, their website. My suggestion is, if you want to try them, which in my humble opinion you should, that is the time of year to get in on it, because you get so much stuff for a relatively reasonable price. The last thing that showed up in my favorites for August was the Morphe High Impact Highlighter in Spark. And the only reason why I'm able to show this is because it's a product that I just decluttered not that long ago. But this is what this looks like. And you guys, this truly is a beautiful highlight. But it is also a highlight that I feel like I have over and over and over again in my collection. And it's just a product that I won't pull for over some of the other ones. It's also a highlight that I feel like swings a little bit too deep for my skin tone and kind of leaves a little bit of a cast when I turn my head. So this did get decluttered not that long ago through the declutters that I did last year that I'll link up in the cards for you. A beautiful highlight. There's nothing wrong with it. I just have a ton of highlights. So something's got to go. And that was old enough and repetitive enough in my collection that one was the one that went. In September, I also had faves and flops, but a much smaller amount of faves and flops. So the flops I had was the BH Pro Concealer that we talked about a minute ago. The Cover FX Blurring Primer. I've never been a fan of blurring primers. This came in a BoxyCharm. A lot of BoxyCharms hits and misses in here. I just didn't love this primer, but Cover FX made one of my favorite primers also that we might visit in a later one of these like flashback favorite videos or something. The paddle brushes. Do you guys remember Artiste? I think they were called Artiste brushes that looked like paddles brushes. I purchased a knockoff version of those brushes at TJ Maxx, and I hated those brushes so dang much. So I did have those on my flop slit. They were too thick. They were way too dense for anything, in my humble opinion. And it was just a weird angle how you had to maneuver everything around in your eye looks and your face, everything. You're not used to going at your makeup in like a brush your teeth kind of fashion, which is what you kind of had to do with those brushes. And I feel like that's why I didn't like them. Hikari Fierce single. I did have that single for the longest time in my collection, but I did declutter it. I do think that this one went to my daughter. It was a really creamy, like red to orange, kind of like duochrome wannabe. And I liked it, but I couldn't get it to stay on my eyelid. It was too creamy, and my eyelids are not oily, but it would crease, it would fade, it would void. And even if I wasn't wearing primer with it, but now that I have more experience with makeup and a little more knowledge about like how makeup works to some extent, I think maybe it might have been a primer issue with that eyeshadow, but I did have a lot of problems with that eyeshadow. So I did declutter that pretty early on. And then the Tarte Knockout treatment was on this list in flops as well. Listen, this was because I did not have a skin problem. I've never had an acne problem ever. And the fact that I thought I needed a salicylic acid knockout treatment that was as potent as that was is just absurd. Like I'm really glad I know a little bit more now. My skin has never been acneic and have really dry skin actually. I get an occasional pimple here and there. I would put that on and it would turn my skin bright red, and it would stay bright red for hours afterwards. And then it would just kind of like slough off. It was as if I were burning my skin. I do think I was chemically burning my skin every single time I use this. And it's not that product's fault. Truly, it's my fault. But it's because I did not need that product. That product was not ever made for me. With that said, my daughter uses it. My 11-year-old, she uses it. My son, my 16-year-old son, he uses it. It's good for their skin. Their skin is acneic. Their skin is, teenage oily acneic skin. They need it. It is a great product for them. It was a horrible product for me. For faves for the month of September, I had the Foreo Tool, Foreo Luna, Lulu, little tiny Foreo skin scrubber tool that you could hook up to an app on your phone. I had that app downloaded for a long time. I used that app for a long time. Now I can't even remember how to access that app, and I have a completely different phone. So there's that. I gave that tool to my daughter for her to use when she's washing her skin, because I've come into possession of a lot of other really great skin tools and also really awesome skin tools that I never use. So I just use my hands and wash my face. That's just how I do. That's how I do. But amazing tool. I really liked it. And I do believe that came in an Ipsy or a BoxyCharm. I also have on this list the Luxie dual fiber brush, and I still have that brush. I actually have like 2 of these brushes. I love Luxie brushes a lot. I love the dual fiber brush. Now at this time, I do think that I was using this dual fiber brush for foundation. because I was watching Bailey Sarian put on foundation with a dual fiber brush, so I thought I needed to as well. I no longer use these kind of brushes for foundation. I do use them for blush though, and I think that they apply blush in such a beautiful way. I have the Perricone MD Essential Glutenate blah blah blah, which is what I said back then too. Moisturizer. This is a moisturizer that is $129, I do believe. It was back then anyways, for the 2-ounce size in which I had in my collection at that point in time. I got this in a box charm. I love this product. Love this product. I have these like 11s right here, scowl lines, right? That I saw visibly diminish while I was using this moisturizer, to the extent that as soon as this moisturizer was gone, I went to Ulta Beauty and I bought some more. And then I bought it again when it was on, like, I think it was on 21 Days of Beauty sale at some point in time. And then I started working at Ulta Beauty and I have all kinds of moisturizers, so I haven't bought it since. But it's an amazing moisturizer. I love that whole line. So I also think that Perricone MD has some amazing anti-aging products and just fine lines and wrinkle diminishers out there. I mean, just really a wonderful skincare line, in my humble opinion. It's also very, very spendy though. So there's that. And then I have on here the Makeup Revolution Golden Sugar 2 Blush Palette. I loved this blush palette. It is the only product from Makeup Revolution that I ever truly, truly loved. I ended up decluttering this to my sister because she came over and she was in here while I was doing my makeup and she was going through my stuff and she saw that, she fell in love with it, and I'm like, take it, have it. So I did end up decluttering that to her, not because I didn't like it, because I absolutely did. I loved it. But because she also liked it and she wanted it. So I let her have it because I have so much. I have on here again the Sydney Grace singles, which I just showed you. They're fantastic. This was, I think, probably in my favorites for the 5 months after purchasing the Sydney Grace singles because they were amazing. I have the Sephora Z dual-sided palette. You guys, I still have this in my collection and I love it. Currently, it is sitting in my declutter bin with the declutter singles that I have, just because I have so many of them, and my eyeshadow singles are in this and my Adept palette right now, so I don't necessarily need this, but I love this. What I don't love about it is that this is my second one because my first one fell apart. Like, it doesn't hold up as well as it should for how costly that is. So to go through 2 of them in 5 years seems ridiculous to me, when they should hold up better than that when there's something like $50. So I love that it has the window, because a lot of palettes like this, magnetic palettes like this, don't have a window. I think Z palette might be the only ones that do it. So I love that it has a window. I love that it was dual-sided. Really great. And all of my singles used to fit in this little guy. They no longer do. And then the last thing on the list for faves for September of 2018 is the KVD Shade and Light Contour Palette. I got this in a BoxyCharm, I believe. You guys, I used that in entirety. That was one of the very first things that I ever panned in my collection in entirety. I loved that palette. And if I ever am in the market for another contour palette, I would probably buy that. Although I do think now that they sell duos with the contour shade and the highlight shade of your choosing, I would probably do that instead, especially if you got to choose a highlight and a contour shade separate and plunk them in there. Because I found that those highlight shades across the top, there was only one that I really loved to use, and the other ones I had to kind of force myself to use. But all of the bronzers or contours down at the bottom, I used every single one of them. One of them was kind of deep, but during the summer it was nice. So Love that palette. I would repurchase that in a heartbeat. Yeah, so with that said, you guys, that's it. That's all I got for you today. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Let me know what was on your faves and flops years ago, what you reminisce about in your brain, and if any of these items brought back memories for you that were either bad or good. I would be interested to have you hit me up down in the comment section. I love chatting with you guys down there. I hope that March is treating you all kindly. I hope that you and yours are well, that you are having a fantastic time out there, that you're healthy, that you're safe, that you're getting along as best you can in this crazy world, and that you are all loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye, friends.